We will call this meeting of the Georgetown City Council to order. Before we start, we'll have a moment of silence. Let's remember that this past week we had two unforeseen deaths that occurred. One, Rand Marshall, who used to be the Scott County attorney for many, many years, and also longtime coach Billy Hicks. We want to send our condolences to the family, as well as others, that these two will be greatly missed, and this council and this city is greatly appreciative of all the things that those two have done for this city and this county, and has really put us more on the map. So with that, let's have a word of prayer. Thank you. We ask Councilwoman Millie Conway if she would lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Have you seated? At this time, we will have roll call. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Allen? Mrs. Wilkins Brent? Here. Mrs. Butcher Conway?
Here.
Mrs. Hambrick?
Present.
Mr. Hampton?
Here.
Mr. Showalter? Here. Mr. Stone?
Here.
Mrs. Tackett?
Here.
Thank you. At this time, a motion for the approval of the minutes.
Motion, Mayor.
Motion made by Ms. Tackett.
Second.
Second made by Ms. Brent. Are there further questions and/or comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say likewise. Let the record reflect that the motion passed. Next on the agenda is the receipts of check register. It should have been sent to you. If you have received that, please raise your hand. Let the record reflect that all has received it. At this time, we have public comments. I want to remind you that on public comments, you will have 4 minutes to which to state your business before this council. Once again, this is not a question and answer session with council. We want to remember, please be respectful of time, and so that we can get through this and be done and move on with the agenda. At this time, we have Mr. John Douglas of the NAACP for Martin Luther King celebration in March.
Mayor and Council, coming before you tonight to ask for your permission to host again the NAACP annual Martin Luther King March. That march, as we've had each year, will be following the same route we normally do, and that is meet at Georgetown College on Cottage Street. We will go from Cottage Street down to Military, turn left on Military, go up to Main, turn left on Main, go all the way through town to Broadway, turn left on Broadway back to Cottage Street, left on Cottage Street back to our starting point. We like to do this on Monday, January the 15th, it's at 4:00 p.m. as a start time.
Motion, Mayor.
Motion made by Ms. Tackett, second by Ms. Conway. Are there further questions and/or comments? All those in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say likewise. Let the record reflect that the motion passed.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Dan Holman, who's going to talk about Boston.
I'm going to pass this around to you all. I passed around, it's a little petition, so you can just take a look at it and then pass it along, and then get it back over here at the end. Let's see. So yeah, as some of you know, we've been talking about the Bridge Street Bridge recently, and the Boston neighborhood. And it's become, the conversation is realizing that this is a complex area of town and kind of a complex scenario to deal with. But that's exactly why you all are elected, because you're interested in these kinds of, this is city planning, infrastructure, housing development, Elkhorn Creek recreation. There's a railroad involved, dealing with the large railroad that comes through the town. So this area of Boston is, and then pedestrian traffic that comes through there, is like a little microcosm of a city. So as city managers and city planners, like, this is the kind of thing that where people are trying to get you all, and I think you all are interested in solving these problems and addressing these issues that relate, these same concepts relate out to the bigger town of Georgetown. So let's see. So this one issue is the Bridge Street Bridge, which is a pedestrian, which is of pedestrian importance, and it used to be of automobile importance until it was closed down. But there's a lot more elements. I just mentioned some of those elements. So regarding the bridge specifically, just to recap, that's important for pedestrians, and pedestrians currently use it every day, like probably a couple dozen people every single day for the last many years still continue to use this bridge. Because it's the only alternative for this whole part of town, especially the Boston neighborhood. Like if you're walking to work or going to shopping and you don't have a car, now all of you have cars probably, but there are people in this town who don't have cars, so they have to walk to work. So they can walk to work or to shopping or to whatever, or the dentist. There's a dentist office that a lot of people in the neighborhood have said they go to over there. They have to go through this Paris Pike underpass, which I think we're all now recapping, and the town has talked about this before, that this is a bottleneck of the town. The Paris Pike underpass has been known for years as a bottleneck of the town. And so that's that stone underpass as you go from downtown out to the Wendy's and such. So especially for pedestrians, it's just dangerous because there is no shoulder. There's essentially no shoulder, and you have to walk in the lanes of traffic. So everyone kind of acknowledges that's very dangerous for pedestrians, but it's also quicker for pedestrians. But also just for everyone in the town, that is a bridge and an underpass that needs to be addressed. I know Mayor Jenkins is interested in that bridge. And I think you all have done some preliminary looking into it with the state recently. There's like a preliminary number floated, $20 million, and that to replace that underpass. So that really should, as we talk about priorities of the town, the Paris Pike underpass should be something, getting this $20 million project done, that we're looking at in the years to come. So regarding the Bridge Street Bridge, which is the alternative pedestrians can use now, there was some analysis of the bridge. I think it was rather cursory, it was a very basic analysis that I think we can do better than that. This Prime Engineering was sent some documents, and they didn't even come over and look at the bridge. Just looking at documents, they came up in a few hours with, they had the statement that was read at the last meeting. I just think that was we can do better than that. We need to do a little bit more in quality analysis of the bridge moving forward. So I called the bridge engineer that works for the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, that's in charge of bridge inspections, and he's the engineer that's in charge of bridges in the whole area of this state, Corey Jones. And I asked him about the bridge, and so he shows up every year and inspects that bridge and all our other bridges and sends reports about it. So I asked him what he thinks of that bridge as an engineer, as a pedestrian bridge, and he seemed he didn't issue an official statement. I didn't ask him for one, but he seemed comfortable with the bridge for pedestrian purposes. And from a state perspective, the state doesn't they don't inspect or oversee pedestrian bridges. So as far as the state is concerned, they would be fine as long as cars can't come over the bridge for pedestrians to use it. And he said every year when he comes to inspect, to look at it, to make sure the barriers are in place, he walks across the bridge and he feels comfortable as a person and as an engineer, and as a bridge engineer specifically, he seemed comfortable with the bridge. But he acknowledged it would be nice to fix the railing. So the main problem with this bridge is, in terms of pedestrian use, is the railing is getting old and needs replacing. We replaced some decks over here at Royal Spring Park recently. It needs the same kind of maintenance, just like we maintain decks and railing and wooden things all over town. This bridge is many years overdue to just getting a few $100s, a few $1,000s of railing repaired, and then the fencing leading up to the bridge, that's not part of the bridge, is also falling down, and then you're getting close. It's dangerous. It needs to be repaired. This wooden fencing. We're talking about, minor wooden fencing or whatever fencing repair. So one other thing that the bridge engineer mentioned, he said that, yeah, good luck dealing with railroads. And we talked about railroads, and if you ever build a new bridge or maintaining the bridge, he said probably the railroad is supposed to maintain the bridge, and I think, but we've lost the original bridge maintenance document. That's a whole other story. But they're probably, frankly, responsible. And part of the reason they want to pay you the money and have you sign it is that releases them from liability. It's now very clear they're not responsible anymore.
Mr. Holman?
Yes. Let me wrap it up. He did mention a story dealing with the railroad in Nicholasville. They wanted to paint a bridge. I think it was in Nicholasville, and they needed a few hours to paint the bridge, and the railroad company would give them 24 minutes. That's all. They negotiated, the state and the city negotiated. The railroad did not allow them to paint the bridge that they needed to paint. So railroads, if you all deal with the railroad, you got to be savvy. Like the railroad people, and Devin's been talking to him, and you all should be talking to him. He's volunteered to come talk to the council in person. He's volunteered that. I don't know if you know that. But also be very savvy. He's not your friend. He's not the friend of Georgetown. The railroad is not the friend, even though they act like they might be. So then one other thing I'll mention real quick, the salvage yard. There's a junkyard across from the bridge, and this is part of the reason that this area of town has declined and the bridge has not been maintained, is the junkyard. So the master plan that's coming out, the 5-year plan is coming out now, and probably they'll present it to you very soon. That shows this whole area, including the junkyard, reverting to residential use. And it is zoned residential currently. So this junkyard has over the years blatantly spilled over its boundaries, and is doing salvage yard activity illegally in residential lots. So I don't know that. I think we all know that at City Hall. They know that. I don't know what's being done about that. But ideally, that needs to be reined in, absolutely. But you can make it a win-win. That junkyard was originally on county property. It was out of town in the 1960s when it started. It was in the country a little bit, but now it's in the middle of town. It's not really appropriate to have a junkyard in the middle of town, which is future use. So one thing to look at is working with a guy to move this thing out to the industrial area of town, like out Sims Pike. The city owns land out Sims Pike. You could do a land trade, move him out there, make it worth it for him. There's also 63 acres of land available on the bottom of Sims Pike, very good industrial land, currently available for $2.2 million, that the city is looking to invest $20 million in stocks and bank account. Consider buy that $2.2 million 63-acre lot, prime industrial land on Sims Pike, and you can break it up how you want. You could move the junkyard out there, and then you could control how smart growth, how businesses come in to that area of town. So those are things to consider. So next steps with this.
Mr. Holman.
Let me wrap it up. Yeah.
Thank you.
So the January 4th.
Oh my God.
January 4th is the Reinvest in Boston committee meeting, and I think this conversation should continue at that meeting.
Thank you.
So thank you very much.
All right. Next, Mr. Vince Morris.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to talk a little bit about the bridge as well. I think that we're looking at an area that is prime to Boston, that opens up to an area of the city that folks will have a real problem getting to if we're not able to sustain what we have, secure it, make it safe, and then make it inviting. One of the things we do is we buy things, we fix things, but we don't make them inviting. And so they're underused. And I believe that most people stay away from the bridge because they think something's wrong with it. But if they knew the truth, they would use it more. People would flood over that area to go back and come down right into the community. I just think it's very, very important at this stage of all of the growth and all of the things that are changing that we look at Boston. I feel that Boston's been overlooked, and it's time to take a look at Boston, take a look at the parks, take a look at the bridge, take a look at the resources that are being poured into the community. The other thing I want to say before I sit down is that it's now time to go back and revisit the Community Coalition, a coalition that was created that began to look at all of the community issues, both county and city and began to try to create some, outlying plans, and then was dropped. Promises were made at the committee table that never came to pass. So I'm here to ask this council to, take a look at bringing this committee back. We've been talking about doing things to, bring minorities to our community, so that our community starts to look like what it really is today. And that was a big part of us having this community coalition. The coalition was started because George Floyd was murdered, right? And so the mayor and the judge got together and said, well, let's put together this committee and begin to look at how we can change our community, how we can stay away from those incidents, and how minorities can become a part of what the culture here and the fabric here. And so I'm asking nicely right now that we take a look at, just jump starting the committee again. There were 4 committees. All the committees are ready to work. The people are ready to work. It's just us getting it formulated again and bringing it back to the table. Thank you.
Steve Price.
My name is Stephen Price. I'm born and raised here in Georgetown, lived most of my life here in Georgetown. And I have watched Georgetown become, since 1987, the announcement that Toyota would come here. I've watched Georgetown become a motorist's haven and a pedestrian's hell. And I am a proud pedestrian. I haven't driven since 1999. I'm doing you a favor, I'm doing everybody a favor by not driving. I don't pollute the air, don't make any noise, and I'm not at risk of running over you on the road. And for some reason, the bridge that connects Martin Luther King Boulevard across the railroad to, I guess what you call Bridge Street, that bridge has been the subject of consideration for demolition. And I'm here to urge you to resist any suggestion to demolish that bridge, because that bridge serves a lot of pedestrians. I've talked with a lot of people who use that bridge regularly to walk to the east end of Georgetown. And if they don't have that bridge to use, then as Dan Holman just said, their only option is to face traffic head on and walk under the bridge, the overpass, the railroad overpass on Paris Pike. So you do all pedestrians a favor if you preserve that bridge. And if you take a look at pedestrianism in Japan, home of Toyota. There is a whole pedestrian movement in Japan that's urging termination of motor transport in Japan because of collisions, fatal pedestrian automobile collisions. And if I'm not mistaken, a World Congress for Pedestrianism was held this past summer in Japan. A world conference of people who want to do away with the automobile convened in Japan this past summer, if I have my records correct. Sometime in the recent past, the meeting was held in Japan, a meeting of an international society for the termination of motor transport. That should say something to you about pedestrianism as a desirable option. And preservation of a good working pedestrian serving bridge is a good place to start reviving pedestrianism as a way of life for everybody everybody who wants to be healthy, everybody who wants to be environmentally responsible, and everybody who wants to abstain from posing a risk, a fatal risk, as a motorist to every pedestrian. Preservation of that bridge would be a good place to start. And I don't know if you, I have a driver's license. I let it expire because I don't drive anymore, but I had a driver's license at one time issued by the Kentucky State Police. And to get it, I had to read a little book called the Kentucky Driver's Manual, published by the Kentucky State Police. And I'll ask you, does anyone know what the Kentucky State Police say in the Kentucky Driver's Manual about driving? They say a lot of things about driving, so I'll have to tell you. The Kentucky State Police advise everybody who reads their driver's manual, Kentucky Driver's Manual, is advised by the Kentucky State Police created by the Kentucky Legislature, Kentucky General Assembly, created and regulates the Kentucky State Police. They publish a driver's manual addressed to all of us, driver's manual to every driver in the state of Kentucky. What does it say to all of us? Drive less. Consider walking.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Next, Ms. Kitty Dogood.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. Seems like pedestrians and public safety is the theme for the evening. I'm here on behalf of my neighborhood and the downtown to talk about sidewalks. In just a few months, I will have lived on East Main Street for 40 years. I know you don't think I'm that old, but yes, that's when I moved here. But I handed out a picture before, and when I gave it to Mark, he said he thought those were some of the other people that might have fallen. He didn't realize it was me. So that picture is when I fell 2 years ago. So at that time, I spoke with Mr. Hightower and the people in the city about this situation because it was the height of COVID. Lots of people are walking. They still are. As Steve pointed out, it's a health concern. But our sidewalks on East Main are a little different than a normal sidewalk. They are also the avenue, besides walking for health, they are also the avenue for economic development. Lots of people park on East Main Street in various locations to visit the businesses, restaurants, whatever in the downtown. 2 weeks ago, now mind you, the first time I fell, that sidewalk has been repaired and it did have a lip. It actually had two, which is how I ended up looking like that. 3 weeks ago, I fell sort of across from the pub, walking. My husband was on one side of me, my neighbor was on the other. Neither time when I am walking was I distracted. There was no phone, there was nothing. I simply tripped on our sidewalks. This particular sidewalk doesn't need to be replaced. They simply need to have grinding done. When I fell 2 years ago, I gave that information to the city engineer. The city of Frankfort had done their entire downtown. The college has done that as well. So it's not a matter of replacing and spending lots of money. It's a matter of how do we make them safe. I did not walk here this evening, although I obviously could, because it's dark. And now I'm a little gun shy, if you would say, to be walking on the sidewalks that I have walked on for 40 years. So I'm asking that we address that in some form or fashion. I have found out since my previous fall, several of my other neighbors have fallen as well, but many people who trip and fall just think, oh, I've had an accident. They don't know to report it to you or to report it to someone else. On Thursday, so 4 days ago, we were having a neighborhood event. We try to gather and support our local businesses, and one of the neighbors fell and ended up not coming to the event. So it's not just me falling on Main Street. This has become a significant problem. Yvonne's here, she runs every day. When there's a walking group that walks almost every morning, they're walking in the street. So it's public safety, it's for economic development, and working with as many communities as I do in their downtowns. It is my understanding that ARPA monies can be used for this because it is a public safety infrastructure that impacts economic development. And I don't think to do the grinding process would be that much of an expense. I know we have the 50-50 program, and if we used one portion of that, that might eliminate a lot of the problems that we have there. So, thank you. If I can be of assistance in finding information, please let me know.
Thank you, Mr. Good. You good? Is there anyone else who had not signed in who wants to address this council? If not, at this time, before I come into my mayor's comment, I'm going to bring up Chief Tim Thompson, who's going to have give you a short presentation or to this council and to those that are here.
Come on in, guys. Mayor, Council, CEO Golden, I appreciate this opportunity for allowing me to come up here. I just want to take a moment to recognize the efforts of some of our guys and the firefighters, the acts of courage that they inhibit. The incident that I'll speak of tonight led to the rescue of 2 people. Every day when our firefighters respond, they have the potential to save someone's life, and countless times our men and women have done this on medical emergencies. I can't say enough how proud I am to be the chief of this department. Each day I see selfless acts of our members putting themselves in harm's way to assist citizens. I'm in awe of each and every one of them. It's not me anymore that's on the street, it's these men and women that are doing the job. There's 36 firefighters, including 3 engineers, 12 captains, and 3 battalion chiefs that are every day making sure that we are taken care of in this city. 17 people on a full day is what's responsible to take care of this city. If you're on duty today, raise your hand, please. It's what you got. And couldn't ask for anything better. It's my honor to work alongside these firefighters and the members of this command staff to ensure that our firefighters are equipped with the necessary tools, whether that tool is training, making sure they're being trained appropriately through the tool of knowledge, physical needs of equipment to prepare and equip personnel to do their jobs, or through prevention efforts to keep our community safe. The structure fire that led to this accommodations that we're going to talk about tonight emphasizes that there is no longer such thing as a routine fire. Just over a month ago, we had a victim inside of a storage unit where he was sleeping. The 2 people rescued in the fire that led to tonight's honors were staying in a storage building in someone's backyard. There's no such thing as a routine fire, and the game has changed. And the fires that these men and women face are different than even when I started this department. Every time these heroes respond, especially to a fire, life safety is a concern, whether it's a residential home, a condemned property, or any other structure where somebody can stay. The quicker they can get there, the better it is for everyone involved. I'd like to now read the narrative of the fire and how things progressed on November 29th. As I say your name, please raise your hand. Engine 3 was dispatched to 829 Lowell Road for a possible structure fire at 6:17 a.m. Engine 3 was the first on scene and advised there was a car and a carport on fire in the backyard of the residence. Upon reaching the backyard, Engine 3's secondary report advised fire had spread to the garage and a shed. Engine 3 also advised multiple small propane tanks were on fire and electric lines had fallen and were arcing on the shed. Engine 3 crew began extinguishing exposures and the vehicle that was on fire. During this process, Captain Josh Cook spoke with the presumed homeowner and asked if anyone was inside the structures and was advised no one was in there. At this time, Captain Cook reported to Engine 2 crew that there was a need to deploy another line to the rear of the structure for garage exposure. Engine 3 crew then moved to the right side of the structure to extinguish the vehicle and carport on fire, all the while trying to avoid the propane tanks that were on fire. Firefighter Jimmy Rivard advised he could hear knocking noise coming from the shed. After shutting down the hose line, and upon closer inspection, Captain Cook could hear someone yelling for help and knocking on the door. Engine 3 crew advised command and began rescue operations. Upon reaching the shed, the door that the knocks were coming from had cinder blocks stacked in front of the door and was locked at the top. Engine 3 crew removed the blocks and the lock from the door. Once the door was open, sheets of cardboard were blocking the entrance, but after they were removed, a male subject was found and removed from the structure. The male subject advised that his wife was still inside. Upon this time, Captain Cook entered the front of the structure and located the female victim. Captain Cook and Firefighter Rivard removed the female from the structure, handed her over to EMS, and after rescue operations were complete, they went back to work trying to extinguish the fire. I want to highlight a few things outside the obvious heroic acts that I just read. These would be, in my opinion, calmness, confidence, and competence. That'd be the best way to describe this call. Captain Josh Cook, whose dad, by the way, Danny Cook, served this community for a very long time, and I had the pleasure of working with, who's surely smiling down from heaven, is as calm and collected an individual as I've ever met. The first person on scene sets the tone for how the scene goes. If someone's calm, it's going to go smooth. If someone is chaotic and running around like crazy, it's going to make everything go crazy. His demeanor is relaxed, and that calmness of Captain Cook allowed his firefighter, Jimmy Rivard, to be calm as well. Firefighter Rivard hasn't even been on the department for a year yet. But he was able to have the awareness of hearing something and thought, was crying and knocking for help, and confident enough to say something. Captain Cook was also confident enough in his firefighter to listen to him, shut down the hose line, and hear for himself. Competence. The pump operator was Gabe Chenault, whose father also worked for Georgetown Fire Department, Theo. He was the firefighter driving Engine 3 that day and gave the crews on the hose line the confidence to know they could do the job without worrying about having enough water. When Engine 2 arrived, the pump operator on that apparatus, Firefighter Josh Ford, was crucial as well. Hydrants were not around, so they were having to supply the other apparatus and also provide another hose line for their crews. Scott Blackburn, Captain Scott Blackburn. Firefighter Wyatt Anderson. They took a line to the back and they were assisting with other firefighting tasks, helping to extinguish the fire. The skill and teamwork shown by these crews alongside also the Scott County Fire Department when they arrived, which also had a member of the Georgetown Fire Department who works both departments, Captain Chad Heisel, made this a successful outcome. I have no doubt that any member of our department would have made this happen, and I trust their abilities and judgment on every call they make. This happens because of the leadership that we have in our department, not me. I'm talking about our assistant chiefs, our command staff, our training chiefs, our battalion chiefs. They're the ones that make this happen by instilling the teamwork and everything that they do. Tonight's about Captain Josh Cook, Firefighter Jimmy Rivard, and the firefighters who facilitate these rescues. I'd like to present the following awards to these individuals. Life-saving award, Captain Josh Cook. And Firefighter Jimmy Rivard. Here. Firefighter Jimmy Rivard, congratulations. For the successful outcome of this, I spoke with Captain Cook about this, and he said this couldn't happen without everybody that was on scene. So for the chief's accommodations, I'd like to bring up Scott Blackburn, Captain Scott Blackburn, firefighter Gabe Chenault, firefighter Josh Ford, firefighter Wyatt Anderson. Yes, sir.
Thank you all for your service. Thank you all. Thank you very much. Very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Once again, thank you, Chief Thompson, your staff for outstanding work and also keeping our city safe.
Amen.
All right, more mayor's comments, the appointments and so on. We go with the executive order on board appointments.
So we separated these out as individual appointments. 3 of these are new appointments, and the other ones are reappointments of members that were already serving on those boards. So we can take a motion for, I know council's probably hopefully had time to review them all. We can take a motion to approve them all, or we can go one by one.
All. Make a motion. I'll make a motion. Second.
So, who's gonna make the motion?
I made it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Motion's made by Ms. Tackett,
Second.
second by Ms. Hambrick. Are there further questions and/or comment or discussion? All those in favor of the reappointment and motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say likewise. Let the record reflect that those appointment has passed. All right, a couple things here before we get into the council committee reports. In talking about Bridge Street, we had some updates. As you all know, yes, we've been engaging and talking with different engineers on that particular subject. As you know, that the drivable part has been closed for many, many years. So we've been talking with the engineering to do one or two things we could do. We can just leave it as it is, and do nothing, or we could tear it down and look to maybe even put up a pedestrian crossing in the near future or in the future. We had, again, engaged with the engineering to do that. I believe Devin was talking in detail with them and actually find out how much it would cost to actually put a pedestrian crossing up in there. So once we get that information and once we find out all that, council should have saw exactly how much it costed to demolition is somewhere between $100,000 to $300,000 to take it down. And again, once we get information as to what it would cost to put a pedestrian crossing back up there, we will let this council know, and we will let everybody else know. We'll keep in touch with that. Also, this council, there were in the last, I think, also someone had asked about the housing, and as you notice, that is not on the agenda to bring in the director because of the fact that we want to do a housing need assessment. Before she can do her job, she has to find out exactly what the needs of this county is. And we are in the process of doing that. And of course, this is going to cost some money. And it's not, hopefully, and the good thing about this, it's not going to be just levied on us. Even though this was a interlocal agreement that put this together, the city and the county, we now, in talking with the Scott United, they're also going to join in this venture. So hopefully, once we find out exactly how what's going to cost, I believe they put out a
RFP.
RFP was taken out, and I believe on Friday, y'all sent it out, or was it
We sent it out last Friday.
Last
so
Friday?
January 5th.
January 5th, and should be getting back to us soon. And once that's done, we're gonna then present it to the council as to what it would cost. And again, it's my understanding that the city, the county, and Scott United will all kind of venture in this, on this particular cost. So that's good news for us, that we're not doing it ourselves and doing that. So we'll keep you updated on that. A reminder about our capital needs, a priority list that, council, that if you have those, please get those to me or to Devin as soon as possible. We want to make sure that when we meet on the 18th, that we have a good list of our priority needs and also a funding avenue of how we want to do that, put in order exactly where we want to go, what would be our priority in doing capital concerns for this city and moving it forward. So once again, please remember to get that to us as soon as possible at that point in time. Again, from that, as I heard this council in previous meetings, and then also in conversation with them about our budget, that budget process will start in January, but it's going to hinge on exactly what we deem to be the most putting in priority as what we want to go with. And of course, I'm going to wait and see where, to get a good scope of not only what our priority is going to be, but also what our revenue is going to hopefully bring in. And then making that, taking out all that information and actually be able to hopefully come up with a budget that's going to be good for this city and good for everybody that's here. All right. With that being said, I believe I've covered what I wanted to cover. Our next will be our council committee reports. And to this time, we have police and fire, but we'll go with police first.
Thank you, sir. We met on December the 4th. The minutes were approved by a motion by Mayor Jenkins and seconded by Willow Hambrick, and the motion unanimously passed. Talked about staffing, hiring, and recruiting. We are currently at 62, with one that was sworn in this morning. 68 officers, potentially looking at being full strength by the end of December or mid-January. 5 candidates are in background, 4 candidates are being interviewed, and 2 are on board to be hired after physical results. Still a lot of recruiting going on at Georgetown College, as well as after the first of the year, the police department will be going to Campbellsville for a few days to try and recruit some from there. Chief Allgood wanted to give Assistant Chief Nash, Captain Lodahl, along with the recruit team, a big pat on the back for their hard work of keeping engaged with the potential new hires and not letting anything fall through the cracks. Police department is also still looking for dispatchers. We talked about the retired SRO status. We have one that is hired, Josh Hudnall, who came from the sheriff's office, and then we have potentially 5 in the hiring process of SRO. Next was the Citizen Police Academy spring class. Starts on March the 12th from 6 to 9. There's already 4 or 5 that are interested in joining. This will be class number 27. If you have not done that, I strongly encourage you to take the class. It is a good time and an eye-opening experience from a teaching standpoint. So, so any that have not done it, it's definitely. Talked about the traffic unit. In January, Chief Allgood will be requesting 3 additional officers for the traffic unit. Talked about a traffic study of a similar sized city, which was Paducah, and that they're feeling some of the same types of issues. In that we talked traffic units and how they can deter crime, and Operation Stop Arm, looking to get that going in January. We talked about the end of year report, goals, crime stats, and specifics for the police department. One thing that was brought up in general discussion was situation we had just here recently at the Christmas parade. We're going to start using bike patrol a little bit more for parades to help keep the crowds back, because a couple of the firefighters said that the crowds were pushing in towards the fire trucks and that they were a little nervous for people. Potentially looking at barriers, may even look at removing the cars from Main Street, and getting some of the mobile light stations to set up in the dark, some of the darker spots. So Captain Lodahl did bring up the fact that we needed 3 more vehicles for the school resource officers, and looking at possibly getting the school system to help pay for them. I'm not sure if that will happen or not, but that's one thing that they are going to address. Last 2 things, one is the Cortico app, which is the mental health app that that the officers, firefighters, dispatchers can, and both active and retired, and their families can have and use. There's several states, 3 states in the East now that are using this app, North Carolina, Indiana, and Connecticut. Georgetown would be the first in Kentucky. The firefighters, police officers, and dispatchers are excited to use the app, and that we recommend making the purchase of the app and making it available to all of those officers. Body cameras still need a needed piece of equipment, and we're getting updated information for the police committee for a recommendation for the full council. The officers are ready to use the cameras, and that's it.
All right, thank you. Next, fire.
But Todd, on that, when you were talking about the parade and I had a lot of people to say,
Oh, yeah.
question that too. But maybe we can go back to putting the rope up or barricades or something. I mean, that's.
The rope helps to a certain extent, but what I was seeing, and I know Greg was on the other side and he was looking too. I mean, we were looking down the side of the truck, and it was, the parents letting the kids kind of sit right there, and more people push up, the more it gets pushed out in the street.
But I know back in our days, we had the rope, and
Oh, yeah.
that's a lot of. Family
So-
members doing the same. Scoot
Yeah.
back, but maybe we can look
Yeah.
into that. It won't be as expensive.
Way too close.
I will do the fire committee meeting notes. And I gave everybody a copy. I don't want to read everything. I want to let the public know what's going on. And if the public has any questions, feel free to call me. I'll be glad to talk to you and tell you everything that we discussed. I don't want to keep nothing from anyone. But as far as general updates, on the training center, the containers have been ordered. They will be ordered in a plasma cutter and welder. Battalion Chief Cam Johnson is working on getting estimates for the total project, and this will include converting the Morton building into a professional classroom setting. So hopefully once we get all the estimates, we'll get that updated. I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be good for the fire department and the other police, EMS, and everything else too. Recruitment, we had 1 drop from the class. We're going to be short 1 and 2 in January, which that comes from retiring or something like that, so we need to look into this. Chief Thompson said that they're looking to getting the Kentucky Fire Commission offers a state fire academy for new firefighters in Greenfield, and they're looking into sending the next recruit class to the academy. It's similar to what the police go through. The recruits will stay on site. This could be a good option, he said, moving forward for small recruit classes. I want to apologize personally for not being in attendance for Light Away. I know that was a nice celebration for Mr. Lytle that has passed, but they, I apologize because I wrote the wrong time down, and I really wanted to be a part of that. And I told Chief, I'm sorry, I don't want to reach out to his wife and get something to him, but I do apologize for that because I was really looking forward to that. And have I messed up on anything so far? Okay, you tell me. You already did the Lyle Road, And I want to again say thank you to all that was involved. I'm so honored to be a part of the fire committee and be a part of you all because you do a good job. And I'm just thankful for everything they did. Cancer Foundation, Chief Thompson, they're going to continue to move forward with this nonprofit so they can start fundraising in January. And the goal is to try to get money for the retirees to get screening done in the spring, and that's very, very, very important that we do that. Toys for Tots, had one already.
Yes, ma'am.
Last Saturday, and have another one on the 15th. 15 on here, but that's good. That's something exciting. That's always good for the children. I won't go over the code enforcement, but there's some properties that are either abandoned or condemned, and Chief Johnson is working on that, and if anybody wants an update or if anybody in the public wants to know what's going on with those, just like I said, reach out to us, Mark or myself. I'll be glad to talk to you about that. And then Assistant Chief Gifford wanted us to know that there is he attended a disaster management through TEEX and learned of classes offered to the public officials, and he recommends that we all try to do that because that teaches us about if there's a disaster here in the town. And that was pretty much what we heard about. And again, if anybody in the public wants to know anything on the fire committee, just feel free to reach out to me because I work for you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Stone and Councilwoman Brent. Appreciate those reports. At this time, number 8, City Hall renovation update. Lord, Heck, and Sergeant.
Hello. I have a presentation teed up here. We'll see if this actually works. I am not going to use a laser pointer because we all know I don't do that very well, and I don't want to blind anybody. So I'm going to do my best to explain things, and if I need to play Vanna White back here and try to point things out, I certainly can. I've been in front of you guys for a long time during design, and so I'm really excited to actually be in front of you now to do a little construction update. A lot of times with renovations, it's hard to see the work going on because it's all inside the building. So I'm going to try to give you an update on some of the things you can see and maybe some of the things that you haven't. Uh-oh. I might be too far away. There we go. Yeah, we'll see. Just some quick parameters here on the request for information. The questions that we get from the contractors, we've currently received 8 questions. We have responded to 4. We have 4 that we are still working through as part of some of the things that you'll see in here. For the submittals, we have 62 that we have received, and all have been returned with the exception of 14 that are currently under review. On the supplemental instructions, what these are clarifications to the drawings that are not cost changes. So we've had 2 of those so far to document some of the value engineering that we reviewed at our, the last time I was here. And then some of the window details. And bulletins are updates to the drawings that are potential cost changes. And we'll get into some of that stuff in just a little bit. One is for access control changes that we're currently working through. Want to make sure that the building is safe and secure. And one to address some items that we have found while we have been demoing the interior of the building. To start with just general update on the exterior, the geothermal wells in the back parking lot have all been drilled, so you can see what those look like there. And then all of our windows have been removed. Also, exterior-wise, the rear stair tower has been demolished. I have heard that the fire department may take the stairs as part of training, so it's nice to see some of that get recycled. So those are sort of the big things that you'll see on the outside that will be apparent. When we go to the inside,
Oh, no, just kidding, still on the outside. We've done a number of mock-ups, some cleaning, looking at some materials, so trying to get everything selected and make sure that it fits with the existing context. Now to the inside. So these are just a few images of what the building currently looks like. We've taken out majority of the interior walls, and we have sort of big shell spaces left. What this means is we found some things, which happens in 125-year-old buildings. We have found some steel columns on a couple of different floors that we didn't know were there. Well, my thing is still not working here. I don't know if you guys can see the green lines here, but we found some steel columns, we found a steel beam that we didn't know was there, and then we also found a masonry wall that was not supposed to be there. We can actually work around a lot of this, but what this means will be some changes down below, which again we'll get to in just a second. We have also found some wood stud walls instead of what we assume were masonry walls. I think it's pretty cool because they are true like 2-inch by 6-inch wood stud walls that are original to the building. So it's cool to see that. Not quite as cool when that wall needs to support what we're going to do for the 3rd floor. So a couple of things to work around there that we have been able to come up with a solution for. We also found that the CMU walls in the interior stair stop at the underside of the 2nd floor. So again, things that are actually fairly easy to solve, just things we weren't aware of before we started tearing into some walls. Once we removed all the windows, we also found that some of the framing is not in the best condition. It's not every window, which is great, so we'll have to look at each one and determine which pieces and parts might need to be replaced. We have found in the basement, or ground floor, excuse me, where we've had some water infiltration at the walls, primarily the walls right under the front part of the building, so right where the sidewalk is. We've got some water coming in, so we need to take a look at that and see what we need to do to remediate that and make sure that that doesn't continue to be an issue in the future. We found a series of furred walls. So we have these original masonry walls that are super, super thick, and now we have some regular stud walls on top of those, which is okay except for the fact that they are partial height, and we are raising the ceilings in pretty much every space in City Hall. So we need to decide now if we're going to take these furred out walls down and expose the plaster or brick behind, which have some other implications, or if we're just going to take those up. Either way, it's again something easily solved. We just weren't planning on it originally. Fun things though, in the ground floor where the walls are not full height, once we took down the ceilings, we found some of the original jail cell windows, which there could be a fun way to expose a portion of it, tell history of the building. Again, we need to figure out the right way to do that. Unfortunately, one of these windows is going right into the training room, so you don't necessarily want that open if you're having training done in there. So again, just something that we need to work through, but it's sometimes fun uncovering stuff like that when you get to see the history of the building. We've also found original wood floors, which I am personally very happy about because we did some initial digging and thought that the wood floors had all been taken up and replaced with plywood at one point. It just turns out that there's a couple layers of plywood on top of these wood floors. So it changes our strategy a little bit in terms of what we want to do, but I think, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we would love to try to repair those where we can, refinish those, and again, let some of that history kind of shine through. So what areas are affected? I've tried to graphically show here where you see the dashed lines. Those are sort of the walls where we have either issues or those furred walls that aren't full height. The dots are where we have columns. The council chambers is where we have the majority of the change. So because we have those steel columns and beams on the second floor, they have to be still supported. And what was supporting those are the walls that we're taking out where the vault was to make the council chambers larger. Again, it's an easy fix. We just need to add a couple of columns, which is actually easier than it sounds, I promise. But we also then need to reconfigure, let me go to the next one here. We also need to reconfigure the council bench a little bit. So before, we had one sort of contiguous U-shaped bench. We had the elected seats sort of up on a plinth like you guys are right now, and then we had two lower seats that were the appointed positions so that we could accommodate the full number we needed, we could accommodate accessibility, and we could stay out of that doorway. We are now having to add some columns right there on the edge to help support the column and everything that we have found above. So as such, the first kind of proposed modification is just to take those two tables on the end and sort of turn them in. So you still get that sort of U shape for the main part of the council, and then the two smaller tables that are still a part of that. What this does, it's a couple of things. It allows us to, rather than tear out all of the structure, the second floor structure, it allows us to keep everything in the building, which then also allows us to keep all the original wood floors that we found. So it's a good thing. It's just taken us a minute to kind of figure out what that redesign is and how to make that work and how to try to do it all cost effectively as well. I think, can we go, thank you. I'm getting some assistance from the magical room in there.
Is your mic on?
The picture in the bottom right, and I'm assuming it's the same.
Yes.
I can see the columns on the picture directly above that.
Mm-hmm.
But is it possible to pinpoint where the columns are in that bottom right?
They are right here, and it's just outside of the picture on the other side right there. So we've taken those columns, we've tried to keep them, let me get back to the microphone. We've taken those columns, we've tried to keep them as small as possible, and then we've just furred around them with drywall to try to make it look like it's intentional and part of the building.
Okay, so those columns are going to be directly up against the walls.
The one will be right up against the exterior wall, and one will be up against the corridor wall. So there won't be any gaps between there. We wanted to hold those as close to the wall as possible. What it did is it sort of, because it pushes into that clear space a little bit, it sort of infringed on that access to go behind the desk. So that's why we were proposing to turn the desks 90 degrees, so that we made sure to have plenty of clearance at that kind of stepping point from the council bench down. This is not set in stone, by the way. This is just sort of a proposal of how to work with the original design and have the least amount of change.
So at this point, you're going to have those columns.
Yes. We either have to have those columns or we cannot remove the wall that is there.
Okay, I see the columns now in the picture on the top right. What are the green, this rectangles there? What are those?
Those are the desks that are lower. So you've got two seats that are a little bit lower, and those are desks. Those are really freestanding, so they could scoot one side or the other. You could, I mean, there's a couple of different configurations that we could look at there. The goal was trying to keep the main part of the council bench the same if we could.
And Mark, if you remember, you know, obviously, council chambers is one of the most important parts of this project, so did say in developing the redesign, want council to be involved in this part of the conversation. But that design of only having, so those rectangles show the appointed officials. So like Emily and Tracy are right here, anybody who's not elected will not be up on the bench. We wanted to maximize space and be able to curl the council and the mayor around to be able to expand for more public attendance. So like Elizabeth said, those seats, those can be moved. I mean, those aren't set in stone. They're, you know, freestanding, that can be shifted, but having them in the initial design, you know, cuts off that ingress egress space behind the council bench.
I have a question as well.
Yes.
What will the seating capacity be in the council chamber?
In the council chambers, I believe we are at 90-ish seats in there. I will double check that though.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I've got another dumb question. It's something. I know we're taking the ball down.
Yes.
It's where the clerk's office
Mhm.
was. Is the seating going to go if we're going to have 90 seats, is that seating going all the way to the front of the building?
It does not. It goes to a point, and then there's a small section of the kind of front of the building that right now is sort of a flex space. We weren't sure what was going to actually occupy that space. At one time, there was talk of maybe tourism going in there, or it could end up being a almost like a museum type space for the history of not just City Hall, but the city of Georgetown. I don't think there is a set use for that space yet.
Sorry, I keep turning the mic on and off. Would it be beneficial to make, I mean, it might be too late now to even consider it, to make that whole space seating as the population continues to grow in this city, to be able to provide more seating, or is it too late in the game to be able to even consider that?
It is not necessarily too late. One thing we will have to look at, because we have part of the kind of backside of council chamber, what is like right behind the bench there, is the accessible pass. We have a small ramp to get up to the council bench. So we would still need to make sure that that is somehow accommodated, which is not impossible if we open that whole thing up. It just makes it a little bit more difficult to figure that out without impeding where things need to go. It also would mean that we would more than likely reconfigure council bench so that it's not right up against windows. We would need to look at alternate layouts for that. So it is not too late. We would need to look at that. I don't know what that would do to the overall schedule in terms of a delay.
And I'm not trying to make things more difficult. I was just mainly thinking out loud.
I have a question.
Yes.
What will become of the vault?
So the vault itself is going away. The vault door is being reused as sort of a showcase piece up on the second floor. So when people come right out of the elevator, it's going to be mounted in the wall right there to, again, tell some of the history of the building.
I want to ask a question now.
Sure.
Since Mark, for when the access to the council chambers, is it going to be steps or is it?
There will be one step that kind of goes up, and then from the back of the bench, there will be a ramp for anybody who needs it from an accessibility standpoint. That is it as far as main updates. What we have for next steps, we're currently working on what we call bulletin number 2, which addresses all of those sort of structural modifications and resulting changes that we just talked about. That keeps the existing beam and floor structure at the second floor above the council chambers. It keeps a column, removes the masonry wall that we didn't know was there, adds a new column, and again uncovers all of the original wood floors. We have to add a couple of steel beams, a couple of steel columns and a little bit deeper of a steel beam to help support the third floor where we have a wood stud wall instead of a masonry wall. We need to add a little bit of additional CMU at the interior stair tower to make sure that that is adequately supported. And then we have those associated architectural changes with some adjustments to the soffits, the sort of border soffits in the council chambers to work around the existing structure. And again, refinish the existing wood floors. We have some adjustments to the office walls on the second floor to accommodate keeping the existing wood floors. And then we have a few associated MEP changes. So we are all working on that. We're very close to having that wrapped up and sent in to get final pricing on that to be able to present to you all at some point in the hopefully near future. And that is it. Yes.
Can you give us a ballpark of what that's going to be?
I don't. I had hoped to have some of the major kind of structural implications. I'd hoped to have that pricing before this meeting, but I have not gotten it yet. There's some trade-offs. There's some savings, obviously, because we're not completely replacing the floor structure above the council chambers. So there's a big savings there, but then we're having to add a couple of steel beams and columns in other locations. There's some additional shoring. So on the structural side, there may be a small add to the project depending on how that pricing works out. But then we also have some savings on not putting in new wood floors everywhere. We're doing something different with sort of the glass wall fronts, which will help save some money. So I think I would love to be able to tell you all that it would be a complete wash. I don't know that it will work out that way. I think there may still be a small add, but we're trying to minimize that as much as we can so that we can, and hopefully this is all to uncover and that there's not a lot more. I've already told my construction friends that we need to stop uncovering things, and they first laughed at me and then said, okay, that's fine, we'll do that. But I think we're getting close to the end of being able to uncover some of these big things and hopefully won't result in a too terribly large add to the project, which does not answer your question at all, I realize.
It is exciting about the hardwood floors, though.
It's very exciting.
Yeah, that's really nice. That
I may have giggled a little bit on site when I found them, so it's very exciting to uncover stuff like that for sure.
And I appreciate the signage you've put up front. I think that looks really good, and
great.
The city can appreciate what's happening.
Great. Well, like I said, it's always hard with renovations. You don't really get to see a whole lot of the progress. You'll see a little bit more of it once the windows come in and once the rear stair tower starts getting constructed, but seeing all the sort of magic inside, you don't really get to see since it's inside. So we'll be back as you guys need us to be back to give those updates and keep showing you guys some progress.
Do you think the water will be too bad of an issue coming in the front?
No, I mean, I think we need to figure out why it's coming in and where it's coming in. I think there are obviously some things that we can do with some waterproofing on those walls, especially if we're going to just put stud walls kind of back over them. We also want to make sure that those walls continue to dry out. So that might mean that we're putting vents in those walls then to let air continue to circulate behind it so that those walls dry out, and if anything gets back there, it doesn't hold water there. So there are definitely a couple strategies, but figuring out and pinpointing exactly what is causing it to come in is the big thing that we need to do first.
Thank you.
The last question
Sure.
is, at this point in time, are we still on target to meet that final date that we had talked about, trying to get this whole project completed?
We need to look at the schedule. We have been trying to move forward with other things as we can while we've been waiting for these structural changes. There may be a schedule implication, but that's not to say that there won't be ways to expedite that again in the future. Some of that depends on the weather. If we have some mild weather and we can do some things outside that we can do earlier, then that might help speed things up later. So we should be getting an updated schedule from the construction manager once we get all of these structural changes put in, or documented, I'll say. So we'll have a better idea after that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next, GMWSS and Chase.
Good evening. We have 4 items for your consideration this evening, and I'll run through those one by one. First, we have a purchase order in the amount of $93,360. This is for Hexagon Technologies. We're going to purchase 4,000 gallons of Hexafloc for plant number 2. This is a budgeted item. It is a bid price. This will be a 4 to 6 month supply, and this is a chemical we use for phosphorus removal to meet our discharge permit.
All right.
Is it in your budget?
Yes, ma'am.
I'll make a motion, Mayor. Second.
Okay, motion is made by Ms. Tackett, second by Ms. Conway. Are there further questions and/or comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say likewise. Let the record reflect that the motion passed. Number 2B.
Yes, thank you. Items B and C are related both to our Northwest Bypass Waterline Extension project. It's item B is a purchase order, item C is a change order, same thing that we're talking about. And this is for relocation of a generator, a standby generator, and the addition of an automatic transfer switch at our new water booster pump station that's located on the same site as the new high school. As part of a cost-saving measure for this project, we had cut this work from the project scope initially. We bid this during when things were very volatile in the market. We didn't know where the bids were going to come in, so we cut this work. We are currently just over $427,000 under budget on this project, so we feel like we want to add this work back in. So if that booster station goes down that's pushing that water through that part of the system, we can hit the transfer switch over to the generator, and we maintain service. Again, we'd cut that initially as part of cost saving because overall we're well under budget on this project. We feel like this is a good price and excellent value for adding this back, and that is at a cost of $37,800 for the work, the additional transfer switch, and moving the generator from the current location to the new location.
Motion.
Second, for B and C.
Okay, motion is made.
I'm sorry.
Motion is made by Ms. Hambrick, second by Ms. Tackett. Are there questions and/or comments?
This is items B and C, or just B?
For B and C.
B
B
and
and
C.
C. Okay, thank you.
Are there further questions and/or comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say likewise. Let the record reflect that the motion for both B and C pass. D, wastewater treatment plant number 2, UV disinfectant upgrades and modification. Recommendation of award.
Thank you, sir. This is, as you said, recommendation of award on a budgeted effort. This is replacing our disinfection equipment. That's UV ultraviolet light disinfection. That is part of the original equipment with the construction of the plant. We've got great service life out of that equipment, and we're recommending with this project that it's time to replace that equipment in kind with just a more updated UV equipment. We are recommending the second low bidder on this project. Those are obviously bid for construction, and the low bidder was actually considered non-responsive as they did not acknowledge an addendum that expanded the scope of work, and they had asked that their bid be removed or withdrawn. So we are recommending that we go with the second low bid, and because the second low bid is above budget, we are looking to extend this project over 2 budget cycles with funding coming from Toyota on this project. They have been notified of the overage. And we've worked with the second low bidder on a number of projects, have every bit of confidence that they can do this project without any issue. So we are recommending this project move forward, and for your consideration, I'm happy to take any questions you have.
Motion made by
Second.
Mr. Showalter, second by Mr. Stone. Are there further questions and/or comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say likewise. Let the record reflect that the motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, number 10, Chief Administrative Officer, a municipal order approving an amendment to the maintenance agreement with AMK Services.
So council's heard us talk about our P25 radio project that was funded back in 2018. The first 5 years of that maintenance agreement were complimentary, so the maintenance on that system has been covered under the existing contract with that project. We're coming up on our first year of making payments on the maintenance agreement, so I know you all have heard us talk about that specifically with the dispatch budget in mind. Judge Covington, Lieutenant Moore, EMA, EMS, all of those agencies got together with AMK in the past, I guess, 6 months. It's been to talk about whether that maintenance agreement has any room for improvement, if there's any cost savings available. So you'll see in your packet, the municipal order calls out the $215,000 in savings over the 15-year period. But also, one thing, if you look at the addendum, the first addendum actually includes a chart where we have discount percentages on various items and accessories under our contract. We actually were able to pull a couple more items into that discount chart, so that was a positive. And then you can see the full chart where over the 15-year life of the contract, you can see where the costs are broken out. So this is a rarity, but an amendment to the contract that decreases the price over the life of the agreement.
Amen. I like it.
Motion made by Ms. Tackett.
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Brent. Are there further questions and/or comments? All those in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say likewise. Let the record reflect that the motion passed. Next is first reading of the zone change ordinance. Lemons Mills, sponsors Mark Showalter and Connie Tackett.
An ordinance changing the zoning classification of certain real property containing approximately 1.991 plus or minus acres located at 1,000 Lemons Mill Road, Georgetown, Scott County, Kentucky, from R2 to B2. Summary: 1. Rezones approximately 1.991 plus or minus acres located at 1,000 Lemons Mill Road, Georgetown, Scott County, Kentucky, from R2 to B2. 2. Provide for repeal of inconsistent laws, severability of provisions, and the effective date upon passage and publication. Full text of this ordinance is available for examination in City Clerk's Office, 629 North Broadway, Georgetown, Kentucky, 404, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Publicly introduced and read for the first time December 11th, 2023.
All right.
And I know that counsel for the applicants, as well as the applicants, are here. I know you all have the zone change record in your packet, but I know they're willing to take any questions if there are any. But this will, assuming there are no questions, this will come for second reading and vote at the January 8th meeting.
Could you all talk just a little bit about the intentions for the property?
Good evening, Council Mayor. I'm Richard Smith. I'm sorry, would you repeat your question?
Could you talk a little bit about the intentioned use for the property so that the public is aware?
I'm not sure I understand your question, ma'am. So for the zone
Yeah.
change?
I understand the zone change, but go ahead.
Okay.
No, we'll be glad to.
I'm sorry.
Ms. Hambrick, members of the council, Mr. Mayor, CAO, thank you for allowing us this opportunity tonight. This property was purchased back in 2007. We've actually owned it for almost 17 years now. A big portion of the property was industrially zoned. Since then, we have been asked to change it over to an R2 zone. The neighborhood came to us, made the request. Planning and zoning did the same thing, so we granted their wish. And in doing that, we're going to put a road through the middle of the property, roughly 22 acres. The front right portion of the property is going to be commercial. we'll have 3 outlots on the front right section. We did go before District 7, and we are obtaining a right in, right out, which is going to be centered between Lemons Mill and East Main Street Extended. So that's going to take pressure off those 2 roads. Both of those are state roads.
Yeah, I
There'll be
saw that.
improvements made to those.
Yeah.
There's going to be a walking trail through the property. We're going to extend
Yeah,
the
where is
legacy
that trail supposed to be, the Legacy Trail? Is it
through this property. I believe it's going to,
on the other side?
it's
by
going to go through
Emerson?
the back, correct, through the
Okay.
back of this piece of property.
Okay.
There'll be about 69 roughly townhomes. They're going to be geared towards 55-plus age group community.
Okay.
Our Matt Welch is going to do the construction and oversee the development of the project. All the maintenance is going to be taken care of so that the homeowners or the tenants won't have to fool with mowing or maintaining the outsides of their properties anyway. So it's going to be something that we're going to be trying to do at a little bit higher level, and something hopefully the communities can be proud of.
Okay,
Are
thank
they
you.
gonna be 2 stories, David?
Some of them will be. Some of them will
be.
have parking in the rear, actually,
Yeah.
in the basement.
Okay.
And Matt, from a construction side, I'd be glad to answer any of those questions.
Well, I just wanted to confirm one, or reiterate one item. The Legacy Trail will
Yeah.
actually cross at the intersection of the bypass and Lemons Mill. It will go along the front of our property, along the bypass, and then about halfway through, it'll cross over and then meander through the backside of the property.
Okay,
We chose that crossing.
Yeah.
We thought it was the safest route for pedestrians.
okay, thank you.
All right. Anyone else got any more questions? Thank you.
Appreciate it.
David, Matt, appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. Next is the second reading of the amendment to GSCRC-related code provisions, sponsors Alonzo Allen and Greg Hampton.
An ordinance amending chapter 36 of the Georgetown Code of Ordinances regarding occupational license tax. Summary 1, amend section 36-56, subsection B, to require current business license or copy thereof to be prominently displayed at each place of business or to be available and produced upon request if no physical business location exists. 2, create section 36-56I to establish business registration requirements, including the posting of a $275 cash bond with the city for general contractors as defined therein. 3, create section 36-56J to establish business registration requirements, including the posting of a $275 cash bond with the city for any person or business entity conducting activity in the city that does not meet the definition of a transient business and who does not own or lease a physical business location within the city for a period of over 6 uninterrupted months. 4, amend section 36-69D to provide for the electronic submittal of annual reconciliation documentation by employers with greater than or equal to 100 employees to the Georgetown Scott County Revenue Commission, and to further authorize the commission to prescribe quarterly returns, forms, or reports to be filed, and to define the way each is to be filed. 5, create section 36-69F to exempt the federal government from the requirement to withhold reporting pay for occupational license tax, and to further establish tax withholding requirements for all such federal government employees. 6, create section 36-70D to establish theft by failure of an employer to remit payroll withholding taxes as a criminal offense, and to further authorize the city and the Georgetown Scott County Revenue Commission to pursue all available legal remedies violations. 7, create section 36-72L to allow for the cancellation, termination, or suspension of a contract with a contractor or vendor determined by the Georgetown Scott County Revenue Commission to be non-compliant with city ordinances and requirements. 8, creates a new section of chapter 36 to allow for the suspension or revocation of a business license and to further establish notice requirements in the event of suspension or revocation. 9, provides for repeal of inconsistent ordinances, severability of provisions, and an effective date upon passage and publication according to law. Full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the city clerk's office, 629 North Broadway, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Introduced and publicly read for the first time November 27th, 2023. Publicly read the second time December 11th, 2023.
Is there a motion?
Motion, Mayor.
Second, Mayor.
Motion's made by Mr. Hampton, second made by Ms. Tackett, excuse me. Okay, so other questions and or comment? At this time, Madam Clerk, we'll have a roll call vote.
Mrs. Wilkins-Brent?
Yes.
Mrs. Butcher-Conway?
Yes.
Mrs. Hambrick?
Yes.
Mr. Hampton?
Yes.
Mr. Showalter?
Yes.
Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Let the record reflect that the motion unanimously passed. Next, we have finance and a municipal order approving renewal of investments with Stockyard Banks.
Yes, talk about that in 1 second. I did look at dates. I know you all asked that we got all of the new accounts opened at Central Bank. I believe it was December 1st. We got all of that taken care of, so those are open and earning additional interest. So with this, as our initial investment that we made with Stockyards Bank in June had staggered maturities. So one of those treasuries matures December 14th in just a few days. So our representative with Stockyards Bank has made a proposal to reinvest the $1.4 million with staggered maturities, as you'll see on here, in December 24, June 24, December 25, and June 25, and they have listed the rates. So these were his best recommendations, and when we had our discussions with our fiscal agent, they felt that it was beneficial for the city to continue investing in U.S. Treasuries as an investment type. So they are supportive of us continuing this particular investment portfolio.
Do I have a motion?
Motion, Mayor.
Motion made by Mr. Hampton. Do I have a second? Second made by Ms. Brent. Are there questions and or comments? All those in favor of the motion signify. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say likewise.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Let the record reflect that this motion is passed. Next, number 12 is the second reading of the amendment of the personnel ordinance. Sponsor is Willow Hambrick and Todd Stone.
An ordinance amending section 2-111 of the Code of Ordinances regarding personnel. Summary 1. Amend section 2-111 subsection C of the Code of Ordinances to increase the number of school resource officers positions from 3 to 6 within the police department. 2. Provides for repeal of existing ordinances, severability of provisions, and effective date upon passage and publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the city clerk's office, 629 North Broadway, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Introduced and publicly read the first time November 27, 2023. Publicly read the second time December 11, 2023.
Do I have a motion?
Motion, Mayor.
Motion made by Mr. Stone. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second made by Ms. Tackett. Are there further questions and or comments? At this time, Madam Clerk, we'll have a roll call vote.
Mr. Hampton?
Yes.
Mr. Showalter?
Yes.
Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mrs. Wilkins-Brent?
Yes.
Mrs. Butcher-Conway?
Yes.
Mrs. Hampton?
Yes.
Let the record reflect that this motion passed unanimously. At this time, next we have council comments, and I'm going to start with Ms. Brent first.
Much to say, I want to thank all the people that came in for the comments, and especially about the Bridge Street. I'm just speaking for myself. That's very important to me, and I'm hoping we can get something done and everyone can agree to it. But I know it's very important, and it's only one side, and on that side of the community, get in and get out. And I do know how it is very dangerous to be going under the bridge or whatever like that. There's a lot of people that don't drive that use that as access. But like I said, I'm just speaking for myself. And I thank you all for coming out for the comments, each and every one of you. Really, all I have to say is we've lost a lot of good people in our community this past week, and I just want everyone to please continue to pray for all the families that have been affected. I know we said Coach Hicks and Mr. Marshall is a big part of my life. Even Mr. Bowden, Ed Bowden, he started Habitat, and he's another person that we need to acknowledge. Just as a community, let's reach out and pray for each family, friends, and everyone, because, you know, life is short, and, you know, we are a community, and let's love each other. That's all I have.
Thank you. Ms. Hamburg?
I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. I don't think we meet again until January. We have had a sadness in our community with the loss of people, and I agree with all of your comments that it makes us realize the short and precious nature of life. And I'm appreciative of being on a council and in a community that does care for one another. We've talked about a lot of important things tonight. I'll be interested in getting more information about the bridge. I do have concerns about the railroad side of this. I would like to have them a bit into the conversation. If the height of this bridge is a problem and the ownership of the bridge is unknown, and they're willing to pay now to take it down if there are safety issues, I'm wondering if debris starts falling from this bridge and causing an impediment for the railway, or if the height is such that they can't get the trains through and then they force us to take it down later. I want to make sure that we're making the wisest decisions from a stewardship and from a safety standpoint as well. So I do think it's important to have pedestrian access. I also think it's important to be wise fiscally and from a safety standpoint in how we go about this whole process. So I'm glad that we're not fast walking this and that we're trying to do our due diligence in figuring these things out. The parade danger is significant. I heard from 4 or 5 people the throwing of the candy and the kids going after it and the closeness of the crowd, and I know it was talked about at length at the police committee, and we have to make some changes there. There's been a change in the Recovery Allies that Karen Butcher started, the group, when we got the opioid abatement funds, which we're going to continue to get some going into the future. At the last meeting I was at last week, they've decided to merge that entire committee into SCAD, Scott Countyans Against Drugs, so that we're not doubling up meetings talking about the same issues, and I think that's a good change, and appreciate the mayor making an appointment for me to be on the board of SCAD, so I think that'll be a good place for us to have input there. And Chase, is he still here? How are we coming with the lead and the copper identification? When does the mitigation of all that happen if things are identified?
The inventory, the inspection, we are moving along very steady with hoping to finish that up, a goal of finishing that up a month early before the deadline. And that's completing all the inventory, checking it, and being able to have the submittal ready. The US EPA, I believe it was last week, released their proposed update, which will include the replacement portion. And that is open for public comment period. And
okay.
They shocked everyone across the country. I will say, and what we were anticipating was a 20-year replacement program has been proposed as a 10-year replacement program.
What number again?
10-year.
Wow.
Again, that is just for comment right now. That is not the actual rule. Thankfully, we are not finding a lot of lead in our system, very little. So I think that we will be able to maintain compliance regardless. We will. We don't have any choice, but based on what we're finding in our inventory, I think we're in a lot better shape than a lot of other utilities across the nation.
Okay, thank you for that update. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hampton?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. I want to thank everyone for showing up tonight and talking about the Bridge Street situation. We do appreciate your comments. We'll take, everything into advisement, and as Ms. Hambrick stated, we'll do our due diligence and we'll make the right decision for everyone involved. Chief Thompson, thank you and the Georgetown Fire Department for everything you do. We're certainly fortunate that this community has your department, and they're very, very proud of them, as well as the police department. As we go into the holiday season, everyone, as we said, we've lost a lot of people. Just it's bad, but it's really bad here at holiday time, Christmas time. So just hug your family, and everyone have a Merry Christmas.
Mr. Showalter?
There's a lot to cover. To the folks that spoke about the Bridge Street, thank you. We have some, I think, tough decisions to make moving forward into the new year. We got to, as Mrs. Hambrick stated, there's a lot. We don't know what we don't know. We've got to make sure it's safe, but we've also got to make sure that we do the right thing for the people that actually have to walk up and down 460 every day in either direction that use that bridge as a cut through. So we've got a lot to think about, and hopefully we're going to gain knowledge as we move forward. Mr. Holman, we still have the issue that you're facing down on Broadway with stormwater, so we can't forget that either. That is a critical issue, not just on Broadway, but throughout the city. Ms. Duguid, I know we've talked about sidewalks for how many years now? Multiple years. I think we all hear you. So make sure that you understand that that's another part of the discussion of things that we need to address.
Safety.
And I think, and I want to say one other thing, and again, I don't mean to put you on the spot, Chief, and again, I don't mean to put you on the spot being on the Finance Committee, and I don't mean any disrespect by this, I promise. We have to be able to multitask. We've got issues and challenges that need to be addressed. And the hair on my arms, I'm not kidding, stood up tonight when the fire department came in, seeing the loyalty to each other and the support of each other. I mean, that's amazing. And again, I don't mean to speak for you, Mrs. Brent, but I think there is a need for a fire training facility for public relations, for recruitment, for training, which ultimately leads to the safety of our fire department and also the citizens of this community. My request is that at our next city council meeting, I would like Chief Thompson to give a presentation of what that, if he's able to do that, of what a fire training facility would look like, to answer any questions, and to get it up for a vote. I would request that at our next council meeting, which would be the first meeting in January. We have serious issues that need to be addressed. We've heard several tonight, and we, again, no disrespect, but we got to be able to multitask. And I get it, but at the same time, I look at our general fund balance and the interest that we're making and the money we have in our general fund balance, and I just think it's time to start acting. Thank you.
Mark, I'm going to say I agree with you, Mark, on definitely with the fire, the training center. So You can speak for me.
Mr. Stone.
Thank you, Mayor. Want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and hope you all have a wonderful holiday season. I too want to thank everybody that spoke tonight. It speaks volumes. You know, I look at, you know, I look at things a little differently when it comes like to the Bridge Street. I look at the liability issue and the danger to the general public walking across that bridge. Being that it is 100 and some odd old bridge, you know, we can't say that it's for 100% sure. And Mr. Holman asked the resident engineer over bridges at District 7, and he said, well, I'm comfortable with it, but, you know, you have to ask him to put his name on something. I think you might get a little bit different opinion, but nonetheless, if that bridge comes out, I'm going to move forward with a pedestrian bridge. I do not want to cut out that that part of this community from having a way out and going under the bypass, because even though it is clearly marked, to this day, there are still people that turn left off of Bourbon Street. They ignore the one-way arrow, they go the wrong way, and they make an illegal left turn. So that's things that have to take place. So you know, if that bridge comes out, we need to seriously, quickly look at replacement with a pedestrian bridge, be it there at Bridge Street or finding another location that we can get one put in. So, you know, but definitely that would probably make the best location, just for the simple fact that the groundwork is laid right there and we can put it up and over and it would be a solid place. So, other than that, have a great Christmas.
Ms. Tackett.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear about the comments on the bridge as well, and I don't disagree with Todd, because I was in Tennessee a couple of weekends ago and down by the Tennessean and was walking up to the theater and they had a covered bridge. It was metal and you could see out over. It was really pretty cool, and I could envision something like that. It would be on a smaller scale for sure, but it would be enclosed and safe, but it would be something to maybe look at as an engineer or something and see what could be done with that. I'm open to that for sure. I thank everybody. I thank Tim and Nick and Chase and Eddie, Robert, all of you all. Y'all do a great job, and I'm very grateful for our community and the safety that we have. And everybody have a Merry Christmas, and we'll work on sidewalks. It's Kitty.
All right, last but not least, Ms. Conway.
I just want to say that I feel so fortunate and blessed to have our wonderful fire department. For the quality of the men that are firemen and the lives that they've saved recently, it's beyond words, and I'm grateful. And that we all need to pray for the family of Mr. Bowden, Rand Marshall, and Coach Hicks, because we've lost some wonderful, wonderful people. And Merry Christmas.
Yeah, go ahead.
There's a person sitting up here amongst us that won an award at the chamber dinner.
Oh, yeah.
Yay, David!
Congratulations.
Good catch, Mark.
Okay. All right, and like I said, in closing, again, we want to thank you all, council, for being here, and thank you all that came here. Again, it's an issue that the bridge that we are looking at, and we have been in close contact and talking with people that's involved with that. We know of the issue. I had been over that bridge many times and looking at it, and also I know the problems of going either by 460 over by Paris Pike that way, and so it's the safest way, and we want to try to be mindful of that, and we're going to try to do the best we can to make sure that everybody's heard and also making the best decision that's going to go forward, that's going to benefit everyone that's involved. With that being said, as you know, the reminder that our council meeting, second council meeting for this month will be council, some holiday called Christmas, so I guess we better honor that and go on with that. But once again, wishing each of you a very safe Merry Christmas. Again, think about your family, keeping them first. Thank you and good night.